Wonderful. Thank you for attending my session today. As mentioned, I work at Michigan State University, and I'd also like to start out with introducing a few other people on the team of this project and had submitted the paper with me. One is Sunny Kim. She's one of my colleagues at Michigan State University. She's presented here a couple times before, so you may have seen her here. And she's a technology instructional strategist and does a lot of work in OER at Michigan State. We also have Dr. Leslie Berkwin. He is a food safety expert. He's a professor in the Human Nutrition and Food Science Department. And we also have Dr. Deepa Thiagarajan, and she is a visiting associate professor in the Institute of International Agriculture. And another person I have to introduce here today is Christine Geith. Here we go. She is up front here. She is the executive director for MSU Global, where I work. And also have Brendan Gunther up here. And he's also from Michigan State University, and I'll be talking a little bit about how his department has helped on this project as well a little bit later. So just to start out just very quickly, I want to tell you a little bit about what MSU Global does. We are a small entrepreneurial unit at Michigan State, and we have three main focuses. We focus on revenue, research, and reputation. And so we help with a lot of off-campus initiatives in terms of using business models and creative technology strategies to develop non-credit revenue across campus. We also help a lot with research, faculty members doing research, help a lot with grant writing and proposals, and also with reputation building. So we go across campus if someone needs a website built or if they need some lecture capture done, basically real specific special projects, we're always willing to help them out as well. The other area on campus that Dr. Thiagarajan and Dr. Berkwin work with is PIFID, the Partnership for Food Industry Development. They focus on educating small farmers working in agriculture in developing countries. So they go all over the world helping farmers and people working within agriculture. So first of all, just to kind of give you a little bit of background about what this project is really about. It's really about connecting some subject matter experts, some faculty we have on food safety, and also the expertise we have at MSU Global in terms of technology and so forth. So Les and Deepa, as I mentioned, they travel all around the world, training farmers, producers, people working in processing plants and so forth. And they focus specifically on those in emerging markets. And one thing that they really want to try to do is to help these companies increase their food safety practices so that they can be recognized by different company or standards groups, such as the British Retail Consortium, Dutch HACCP, different age standards such as that. And the reason for this is going to open markets to them. Because as they increase their food safety standards and so forth, they will be able to sell their products to bigger companies like ones ideally such as a Walmart or Tetley, something like that. And so they're already doing this, but they're doing a lot of face-to-face workshops, and they really wanted to disseminate their knowledge elsewhere and further. And so that's where we teamed up with them in terms of how to do this. And so kind of as an overview, we decided to call this a Food Safety Knowledge Network, and what I'm going to be talking about is how we developed a competency framework based upon this, open educational resources to support it, a mapping tool which basically groups those two together, and so we can make it available to people, how we developed assessments to go along with it, and then we had many pilot programs that we've done within the last year. And of course, we have a lot of our funding from the Hewlett Foundation and also USAID for these projects. So first of all, I want to talk about the competency framework that we developed. In February of 2009, there was about 8 or 9 of us, and here we are in the picture at the Dannon offices at the Amsterdam airport. And what we were doing there, we got together for 2 to 3 days to hammer out some competencies relating to food safety. And we followed some guidelines that are already out there and on 13 competency areas, such as personal hygiene, cleaning and disinfection, facility management, things like that. So we did have a core of something to start with, but beyond that, what we did for each one of those 13 areas, we developed 4 to 8 competency statements for each one. And so this was 2 to 3 days of very hard work and so forth, but in the end, we did get them done. And one thing to specifically note about this is these competency statements are not for individual companies. They're actually for the people that work in food safety. So they're for the people, not necessarily the whole organization. So once we had that done, we went on to that summer of 2009 to develop learning resources to help support each one of those competency areas. Okay, we needed content, places for people to learn. And so one thing that we did is we developed a lot of instructional design documents and procedures to help our subject matter experts. Obviously, they're not experts in putting things online and so forth. And we want to be very specific within it that we could use this content not only in, kind of more linear courses that people could go through, but as standalone learning objects as well. So we had to be very flexible in our approach. Luckily, the subject matter experts we worked with, they were very in support of making these open. And so that helped a lot, especially when going through their content, taking out some of their copyrighted images that they would have in their presentations and things like that. And especially in food safety, that kind of becomes an issue because sometimes they're showing bad practices of different places, and people wouldn't necessarily want that open and out there. So we had some challenges there. Also, one of the goals that we had in mind for these resources is we wanted them to be in many different formats. We wanted to focus on many different learning styles, whether someone's visually or if they would rather hear it and so forth. And also we had to be flexible in terms of our audience because they may have different connectivity issues depending on where they are located. And along this process, we were also able to translate these resources into different languages. So currently they're in English, they're in Mandarin Chinese, Arabic, and right now they're actually being translated into Spanish. So we are growing as we speak. The original source of these learning resources were from face-to-face workshops that our subject matter experts, Dr. Berkwin and Dr. Thiagarajan, spoke at, and we recorded them, and I'll tell you a little bit more about them in a little bit. We also went out to try and find additional resources, so resources from government agencies, from other private individuals and so forth, universities that would also be willing to share their content. So we tried to do that as well. Okay, our assessment development. We worked with some experts in the College of Education at Michigan State University to train our subject matter experts on how to be test item writers. So we gathered them all at Michigan State University for a few days, and they learned how to do this, and we separated out all the competency areas. So one took personal hygiene, another one took incident management, and split it up that way. And they all went off on their own, and they had to had a deadline and had to create many test item questions. And once we had them done, we had our experts at MSU review them, edit them, and so forth. And then we put them into pre- and post-assessments for different pilot groups that we were going to have them go through. We ended up with 130 questions in each assessment, and each one of those are unique. So if you had one question in the pre-assessment, you would not see that in the post-assessment. We also had some demographic questions, of course, as well. We did pilot these at our first event and obviously made changes. We did some data analysis, made changes to the questions based on that, and made changes to the lectures as well. The people speaking and training the individuals found that maybe they had to teach a little bit more in one area, not as much in another, things like that. Okay, so we had our competency framework. We've got our open educational resources to go along with it. We've got our assessment questions, okay, and all this was done from about February to about September, okay, 2009. And along this at the same time, we were developing a website called the FoodSafetyKnowledgeNetwork.org. This was developed, we decided to use Drupal as our open source technology, our CMS, to have it on. And the one thing we couldn't find was a Drupal module that could easily map our competencies to the open educational resources that we developed. So that's when we went to Brendan's group. And we said, hey, we need some help. We need some of your team to develop a new Drupal module to do this. And they did. And basically what you can do is we can have a group of reviewers, so subject matter experts, go into the site on the administrative side. They can view a list of resources that have not been mapped to the competency, and they simply go in, they have a drop-down, they identify which ones it goes with, because it could go more than one. And then the user can see that on the other end. I'm going to show you that in just a moment. So, along with that, we did integrate within the site the Creative Commons Discover Ed in order to help our findability and help with our metadata and things like that. So if you were going to come to our site, at the home page you would see an option here to search for resources by topic or by competency. And if you were to click on the magnifying glass that says competencies, you would come to this page right here. This has a table that lists our 13 core areas, so you can see like cleaning and disinfection is our very first one here. And if someone were to click on View Learning Resources, they would come to a page here, and we've got some resources from outside agencies. We've got one from the District Health Department, one from Iowa State University Extension, and then we have another one of resources that we had developed. And so this is an example of how people could come here and they can download anything from the video to the audio, transcripts of it, many different formats of the same resource. And so we're reusing that resource in many different ways and making it flexible. You can also see right here that we have the Creative Commons license on it. We've got the attribution share license. Okay, so we developed all of this information. We got the framework, we've got the assessment questions, we've got the content. It was time to pilot it. So in September of 2009, they held a 3-day training in Chennai, India. And as you can see, we had about 75 people here from 25 different companies. And what they did was, the very first thing the participants did is they went through the pre-assessment. And they went through all the questions, took them a couple hours. And they went through a series of listening to the lectures by their experts, Dr. Berkwin, Dr. Thiagarajan, and another consultant from the UK. We recorded all of these lectures using Camtasia Relay. Okay, kind of a screen capture type of product if you're not familiar with it. And then after, at the very end of the conference, they went through a post-assessment. And we took all that information back. We analyzed the data to look once again at the test item questions and things like that. And then we took the content as well that we recorded and made it part of our open educational resources. So we had a second pilot group, and this one was going to be a little bit different. Each one, we've got 5 pilots I'm going to quickly go through, and they're each unique. This one was a group from a company in India called Metro Cash and Carry. And the one here, we decided it was going to be completely online. So we took those resources, those recorded lectures from the workshop in Chennai. We put them all online, added instructions. We basically made a course that people can go through. And here's a screenshot of it right here with all the different resources and different formats and so forth. Okay, so the one thing that we did as well, we not only made it available in those formats, but we also knew we'd probably run into a situation where someone maybe was having problems connecting to the internet or something like that. So we also put them all on CD, and we did end up, I think 2 of them we mailed out to the whole group, so there weren't a whole lot of them. Each participant received instructions from us and so forth on how to go through the course and the progress. And then our timeline, they basically had 2 weeks to go through the pre-assessment, and during this time they could not see any of the resources, so they were closed up to them. Then they had 2 months to go through the content, and even though it was put together in a linear format, it was flexible, so they could basically go to the content area that they felt that they needed to learn something in, okay, whether it was corrective action or something like this. And so we made it very flexible. And then in the end, we intended to give them 2 weeks to go through the post-assessment. We had to extend it out to a month because of some holidays that they had in India and so forth, so we made it flexible for them as well. But they were very happy with the results. The company was very, very glad with what we did and so forth. Our next pilot group we had in November of 2009 in Shanghai, China. Coca-Cola sponsored a workshop out there on food safety. And so we went out there, and here's a picture of all of us there at the hotel. And these were all their suppliers, a bunch of their employees and so forth, 142 people. And for this one, this was the first of our translations. So obviously, we needed to translate the content into Mandarin Chinese, and as well as the assessments and so forth. And so here's a picture of them taking the pre-assessment. We also did the lecture capture a little bit different for this one. Coca-Cola also wanted us to put all the lectures online for them as well, and they wanted video with it. So we went down there with some video cameras, and we taped all the lectures, brought that back to the US, rendered everything, tied it in with Camtasia, and so these were a little bit different that you also could see this format as well. The next pilot group was in Egypt, and this had about 75 participants, and this became more of a train-the-trainer. So we sent an expert out there, and he took all the PowerPoints out there in the presentations, and it was all translated into Arabic as well. And then we had the 5th pilot group was Tata Tetli Tea, And this was another online one. It ran from January to April 2010. And this one was a little unique as well as a smaller group, only about 30. But they use it as an internal training program. So they actually saw the assessment results of the participants, whereas in the very first one, it was private to that individual person. They were kind of doing it as a growth mechanism for their people. This one was more of internal training. So, a summary of our pilots. Through this project, we got to develop about 90 training resources. There was, each one, we had different audience for the pilot groups and so forth, but there was about a 6 to 16% increase in scores between the pre-assessment and the post-assessment. The lowest scores, those who had the lowest scores in the pre-assessment showed the most improvement. And then for our online participants, most of them said they preferred the audio files over video, which didn't surprise us very much either. So some of the challenges to this project. We've gone through and we've developed a lot of content on our own. The one challenge to us is to continuously expand out there and try and find other organizations that can help us get additional new content. And so part of that is, going out to people. They seem very excited about it when they hear, we try to explain to them what open educational resources are and so forth. But the challenge comes in into having them maybe, clean their content a little bit or having to change some things. I mean, they love the idea, but, it's a little bit of work for them. We also ran into some legal limitations with European law in terms of being able to label FSKN on some of the resources and the use of it. And also our availability of experts. We did all of this with, basically 3 food safety experts, so we kept them busy over 9 months. So as a summary, in 2 years, we developed over 100 competency statements, 90 OERs, assessment, and we've created a pool of assessment questions and instruments, had 5 pilots with nearly 350 people. Future plans, we'd like to keep doing more pilot programs, whether they be online or face-to-face. Maybe doing some work in Asia here this next year.